All right, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. We're back with more Nesivos Shalom on Shovavim. So the Nesivos Shalom brings a famous, or maybe we should say infamous, Zohar, depending on how you want to look at it, that has plagued people throughout the ages, really messed a lot of people up, and gotten them very upset, very depressed. And that is a Zohar that states that for the sin of pgam habris, there is no teshuva. Teshuva doesn't help. And the Nesivos Shalom says that we should have a bit of a kasha on this, because Chazal says that teshuva should always help. There's no avera that you can't try and do at least some sort of teshuva on. So how could it be that the Zohar says such a thing? So he explains the reasoning is that every time someone does an avera, chas v'shalom, so a certain part of their body is involved in it. Someone is, speaking lashon hara. They're using their tongue. They eat treif. They're using their mouth. They flick a light switch on Shabbos. They're using their finger. Whatever the case may be, right? So that part of the body was involved in the sin, but other parts of the body weren't. The other parts of the body can help to waken that part of the body up and do tshuva. You can use other parts of your body which weren't involved in the sin to initiate the tshuva and kind of pull the rest of the body back out, right? So I'd kind of like to think of it of, let's say that you're a repair guy, shaputznik or something like that, handyman. So you've got your toolkit, you got your toolbox, right? You go to a job to fix something, and lo and behold, while you're in the middle of the job, your tool breaks, right? Let's say that you're drilling in a screw and the drill breaks, right? Okay, so I'll take out my screwdriver, I'll do it by hand. My pliers fall apart all of a sudden, so I'll adjust my wrench and use that instead. You get a little creative and you use some of your other tools, and it might be a little difficult, but you make do. What happens if you're on a job and all of a sudden every single tool in your toolbox is broken? What are you going to do now? There's no alternative, right? There's nothing you can do to make do because there's something wrong with every single tool. So just like in that, in the case of pgam habris, it says that every single part of the body is involved in this sin. So there's no part of the body that isn't defiled that you can use to pull yourself out of that sin with. So that's the reason, even though tshuva should always help, he explains the reasoning behind the Zohar is that in this particular case of this particular Avera, because the whole body gets pulled into it, so that's why it, there's nothing left from which to try and start the rectification with. Also, we know with pgam habris, the bris represents the yesod. Yesod is the foundation. It's the foundation for everything. So if the foundation of a building goes, the whole building collapses. There's no building left, right? So if you destroy the foundation or damage the foundation, there's nothing left standing on it that you can work with. So the Nesivos Shalom brings Bnei Saschar, who in turn quotes the Reishis Chochma, that indeed it seems that there shouldn't be tshuva that can help in this case, but that's specifically talking about a lower tshuva, a tshuva tata, but a tshuva ilah, an upper tshuva, does help, even in the case of pgam habris. So the Nesivos Shalom says, what does this mean, an upper tshuva? So he says, if you can be moser nefesh in your tshuva, right, and you can mamish turn yourself into a bria chadasha and a new person, so then tshuva works. Why? Because even though everything was defiled through this sin with the old person, if you make yourself into an entirely new person, then you've got a new tool set all of a sudden. You're not working with the same tools you were. You've got a whole new tool set. So even if every single tool in the old box was broken, ruined, I don't know what, you've got a whole new box of tools now. You're not working with the same tools you were before. And this was a big chiddush for me, and I've spoken to other people about it. It took a while to internalize, but that is that with definitely with things like pgam, habris, also really any taiva or vera that someone can find themselves getting stuck in. A lot of the time it's hard to pull yourself out of a particular avera because you just feel like I don't, this is just part of who I am, this thing, and maybe I don't want it to be, but for whatever reason Hashem put this challenge in my life, this desire in my life for this thing, and I just it's part of me, it's baked into the cake with me. So what am I supposed to do? It's here. No matter how much I don't want it to be, it's just part of my nature. So um, one of the strategies to get out of that is that you can envision and visualize yourself and conceptualize yourself as someone who is not doing that, right? So, for instance, um, most people, 99.99% of the population, would not want to kill someone, right? Most people are not murderers, right? So you don't struggle with that because you just think, well, that's just not me. I'm not a murderer. I don't have a desire to go around killing people. So I don't have a problem with that, right? It's not a challenge for me. It's not something I want, right? Or you could look at, let's say, like something that's below you, right? So let's say that you're walking down the street and there's just something really disgusting on the streets. A dog threw up on the street. I don't know what, right? So you wouldn't want to necessarily clean that up or clean it up with your bare hand, right? You would, I'll give you an example. Someone I know once saw, they were telling me about a documentary they saw about mothers in different parts of the world, and one of the mothers interviewed in this documentary was some lady living in a hut in Africa, and she, like, just really rural Africa, and the baby didn't even have diapers. They didn't have diapers, right? The baby was just running around naked in on this dirt floor of this hut. And as she's talking to this interviewer, she's holding the baby in her lap, and the baby goes to the bathroom, right? And just without even hesitating, just not even stopping her sentence, she just takes the baby, rubs its behind on her skirt to clean it off, and just, keeps talking. That's how she would clean it. Uh, and for most people, I would never do something like that. That's disgusting for me, for where I come from. Maybe for that culture it's fine, but for my culture, that's like something so below me, right? I wouldn't ever think to clean the baby like that. That's below my dignity, right? It's not something of who I am to do something like that. That's not a behavior. That behavior is below me, right? So too, you need to come to a realization that you're a hushiv person, right? And whatever this thing is you feel stuck in, at the end of the day, you're Kadosh Baruch Hu's child, and you're whatever thing you feel like you have a draw for. If you can visualize that, you know what, doing this behavior, doing this sin, chasing after whatever this thing is that you may feel you're struggling with, it's below me. It's not, I'm better than this. I don't want to be associated with this type of behavior. I don't want to be associated with this. I'm so much better than this, right? And if you can come to that realization, then it loses a lot of the draw, because a lot of the time, because we get stuck in these route behaviors, So someone just say, okay, I'm just gonna fall back on whatever this thing is because it's what I always do and it's just who I am. But if you suddenly stop and think, but no, that's not me. And that's why should I just automatically fall into this behavior, even if I have before? That's not who I am anymore. Maybe that's who I used to think I am, but now I realize I'm someone else. I'm someone more chashiv. I'm someone above this. Um, and if you know when someone's really stuck in the stresses of life or fighting the battles, the milchemes yetzer, so that's not necessarily the time someone has the yishuv adat to think about that. But during times when maybe things are more calm and you're more collected and you have your wits about you, to really focus on this nakuda that even if I'm not the most chashiv person in the world, at the end of the day, I'm a child of God, and nothing, if nothing else, that makes me a chashiv person. And I'm too chashiv to be the type of person who's involved in this stuff. It's just below my dignity. It's below my standing in life. And if you really start to identify yourself as that type of person, and you can really ingrain this into your head, then after a while, you finally, the next time that an urge to do that, whatever that behavior is, comes back up, then it maybe like loses some of its tom. It doesn't have that same pull, that same flavor, that same enticement, or even sometimes people, Rahman al feel it's a chiyuv. Like I have no choice. I'm trapped in whatever it is, my bodily lusts, my emotional lusts, whatever it is, and you can start to kind of get out of them. Well, no, not necessarily, because that's not who I really am. And I'm actually a better person than that. I'm above that. I'm not the type of person who does that. Maybe I used to think I was, but now I've come to realize that I'm not. And it's a really powerful tool ingraining this realization in. And I think that ties in with what the Nesivos Shalom is saying. If you can make yourself into a new person, so then you can do tshuva, because you're now not the same person who was stuck in that anymore, and you've got different tools to in your toolbox to fix that. So Bezrat Hashem, we should be zoche to always realize our worth, and no matter how high or low we're holding in the totem pole of Klal Yisrael, even the lowest of the low is, still needs to realize they have a chashivas about them, and that everyone is chashiv in some way or another. And to always remind ourselves that, just because I may have been involved in something before, or thought I was interested in that, or thought I was pulled down by that, I'm actually so much better than that. And I don't need to be pulled into that anymore, because it's below me. It's below my standing. It's not someone that a person like me, that's not something I would involve myself in. And if we can really internalize that, we can make a lot of progress in life. We should be zocha to that.